Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how I edit my street photos in Darktable. Let's get right into it. So this right here, this is a picture of a biker. To start, usually I will look at exposure. When I'm looking at exposure, I look at the histogram and I look whether or not the histogram is covering the entire spectrum of light. You don't want it to clip, so I don't want it to go right here and it's, clipping. It doesn't really look nice. Depending on the photo, you may or may not want to add a certain mood with it. So say I want to make it a little darker, and that will make the scene feel more in the dark. So I think that actually might be a pretty good idea. So I'll keep it a little bit darker. Typically, your camera will get white balance correct. After that, moving on, I will go to the tone curve, or the tones. So I will go into my film like RGB, which in essence this replaces any sort of contrast. You don't have to touch the contrast. Just go to straight to film like RGB. I skip all this. I'll be honest, I don't really know what this is. I go to look, right, make it nice and simple. And so if I increase it, I get more contrast, decrease it, less contrast. I personally, especially for street photos, I like it to have a little bit more mood. I think that higher contrast photos, now don't go overboard, but higher contrast photos have a bit more style to them, right? And so I think this right here is pretty good. Uh, if you'd like, I sometimes do this local contrast. It will almost increase your detail. Um, this really depends. Sometimes I'll use it, sometimes I won't. I think for this one, the reason I won't use it is because I feel that it kind of it almost makes it like too sharp. Like I kind of like that faded look, right? Which we will later add on in the tone curve section. So after this, I will typically look at my sharpening. Uh, I think that this photo is, I think what it's set at right now is completely fine. You can increase your sharpening, increase the radius, increase the amount in that radius. This really depends on the lens. I shoot this photo was shot at 85 millimeters at f2.2. This lens is pretty sharp, so typically, depending on the lens, sometimes you'll have to add sharpening. Sometimes you even remove sharpen. Um, Afterwards, I will move on to my color table. So this right here, the color balance. This is the old color balance tool. Now we have a new one. So what I'll typically do, so for this photo, I want to create I want to really highlight the bicycle, right? And those colors, the red, the blues, right? I don't really care for the greens. So we will go into the color zones, which for Lightroom users, this is your HSL color sliders. And so what you can actually do here is if you go press the three little lines, you can actually press HSL base setting and it will give you all the HSL colors. So you can drag them around. So since I said that I want to remove some of the greens in that, aka I want to remove some of the saturation from those greens, I'm going to drag this down, right? And so we can see that if I drag it up and down, it changes colors or it changes saturation, right? I can even pull that down right there a little bit. Yeah. And then I said I wanted to exaggerate the reds. I want to boost the reds. Now, again, you have to consider that you never want to go overboard, right? You still want to stay true to what the original photo is. You want to keep it mellow. I'm going to add some reds, like the blues, right? I think that I'm going to add some. Now, you do have to recognize that if you add blues here, that you're going to introduce some more saturation to the sky. There is ways of going around this, but that is mainly for another video. If you're interested in looking this up, you would use masks. And so I can play around with this, right? And I think that if we stretch this right here, and again, this is another advantage of using the raw format for shooting your photos. You have the ability to change your colors as much as you like. So I think I'm pretty happy with this. I have the reds right here, right? They're nice and bright. Unfortunately, this person's outfit was pretty dark, so it doesn't really stand out as much, which you kind of take what you have when you're shooting street photos. Here, this tab is amazing. This tab allows you to control the chroma, which is it. The chroma, it essentially controls your saturation and your brightness. Um, your saturation just controls your colors, and then your brilliance, that's how bright parts of your image are. And so the cool thing about this is that it allows you, this tab, it allows you to control specific parts of the image. So say I want to increase the saturation in the shadows, right? And we can see that right here, right? The shadows increase. However, when we go look at right here, right? So that's in the shadow, but the blues, let's find maybe some more highlighted blues. They're all highlighted. But in any case, if I play around with highlights, see how that changes it a lot less because the sky is considered a shadow in this case. So in this case, I think that I want to increase some of those red tones. I think that I will decrease the saturation in some of those highlights. I don't want them as I don't want them to take over the image. We can see right here that this is definitely very bright. I will definitely likely lower the lighting or the brightness of some of these highlights. You can choose to boost your shadows. I typically don't like doing this because it kind of it adds the faded look, but not in the way that you want it to. Moving on, we can add our formerly mentioned split tone. So typically, it's very common split tone. It's a sort of blue and orange. It's a very common color combination. You can play around. And obviously, if you go overboard, it looks pretty bad. So we're going to set whatever we'd like. And another cool feature about this program is that, say you want to see how your image looks with a feature or with a tab on and off, I can turn this on and off, right? I can see, okay, that's pretty nice. I recommend that you don't be afraid to add color. I used to be very afraid of this. So I would kind of stay very mellow. Don't be afraid to introduce color into your image. As long as it's not overboard, it's completely fine to have, say, an image be more yellowy, green, blue. What matters is that you maintain a sense of reality and a sense of cohesiveness, but be creative, right? That's the really big skill in photography. So after I'm more or less happy with the way that my colors look, I will then move on to one of my favorite tools. So what tone curve does is that you can brighten and darken certain parts of your image. It allows you to more precisely alter the lighting of your image, right? So it allows you to change the exposure of very specific parts of your image, right? And in a sense called tone curve. So say I want to darken my highlights, right? And so now what we have to recognize here is that when I darken them, when I darken them, only the middle part darkens. And so to combat this, you would, if you darken the entire or a larger section of it, right, you're actually able to darken it. However, this part of the image will start getting darkened as well, and it will start getting destroyed. A very popular, very simple method is called the S-curve. So typically, and I'm holding control for this. It's more fine-tuned adjustments. Just hit control on your keyboard, command if you're on Mac. and I can make more fine-tuned adjustments. I think I'm pretty happy with that. And this is where the common look of the whole faded, almost like a filmic look. You bring up your shadows a little bit, and what this does is that it it brings up the shadows while retaining the contrast, and in essence, like, or rather retaining those blacks in a faded form. Now, some people, they prefer to have their images not look faded. I like the look, so I usually add it. Now, again, with anything, don't go overboard. It destroys your image, but bring it up to a satisfactory level, and then from here, I can play around with this. So typically an S curve, I'm gonna create an S, right? We're gonna darken up our shadows, bring up our highlights a little bit, and then I think this looks pretty good. And then once we're finished, what we can do is we can actually, if we go down to basically where we started, take a snapshot, right? And then we can see what our results are, right? Scroll from here, right? Here. And I think that's pretty good. I think we got a good image. And then to end it off, we go down to our export options. I would recommend choosing JPEG. It's a very good file format. Always make sure that your quality is on 100. Don't want to miss out on any of those pixels. And we just click export. All right, that was it. Thank you for watching and have a good day.